973-7425. Confess. I must confess my sin before I go on to any news of the day. I must confess. My friends, am a male human being, a guy, also a husband. I must confess my sin. My wife told me never use the bedding option on the washing machine. And she says she told me, I don't recall her telling me, but I am a husband, which means that she more likely than not told me, and I just don't remember. And our sheets have been in the dryer for almost 2 hours, and they're still trying to be washed. It is my fault. It has been made clear. It very clearly is my fault. I pushed the damn button, and they won't stop washing. I don't know what to do. I got to go in on commercial break and flip them to just like the rinse and spin cycle, so they'll finally come out. Who designs these things, these washing machines, that your laundry never comes out of them? It's like it's eating the sheets. It is my fault. I repent. I apologize for all husbands everywhere whose wives tell them stuff and they don't remember, because I clearly do not remember. I pushed that stupid button, and 2 hours later, the sheets are still in there washing, spinning and washing and spinning. Do you know how much my water bill is going to be because I pushed that stupid button? That'll teach me my lesson. I apologize. I repent. I will never push that button again. I will remember henceforth. I want it on the record. I have apologized, and I will do better. I promise. For all of mankind, I will do better. Now that I've got my guilty conscience out of the way, we can begin. Where you know what? No. Look, we can talk about guns all day, but no, I want to start here instead. Listen, we're gonna have to talk about guns again today because the Democrats are in overdrive. The president of the United States wants gun control. The Democrats are saying, well, the filibuster, we got to get rid of the filibuster now. And if you don't want gun control, you're a terrible, awful, horrible human being. Well, we will get there in just a minute. But I want to do this now. Oral Roberts University. First of all, I have an employee who I was on a Clubhouse call. You know the Clubhouse app. It's the group chat for the internet. It's like the phone app with a bunch of millennials who talk over each other. I was on it last night with Comfortably Smug's minions. And someone mentioned Oral Roberts University, and the employee, who will go nameless, Philip, leans over to me and says, that's a basketball reference, as if I didn't know. I know it's a basketball reference because it's a big story that Oral Roberts is doing. It should be the feel-good story of the year, except at USA Today. Let me read you the headline. This is For the Win. It is the USA Today sports section. Hamal Havari, who is the girl who also yesterday rushed out and blasted white supremacy for the shooting in Colorado, and still apparently thinks it's white supremacy, even though it was a Syrian immigrant to the country. This is her story. Oral Roberts University isn't the feel-good March Madness story we need. March Madness loves a Cinderella story, and this year it's Oral Roberts University. Oral Roberts, a mere 15 seed, destroyed brackets by toppling number 2 Ohio State in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and now enters the Sweet 16 after defeating number 7 seed Florida 81-78 on Sunday. Part of the joy of March Madness has always been watching smaller schools upset powerhouse programs as kids from regional unknown colleges and universities get their moment in the sun. Because everyone loves an underdog, Oral Roberts has become a fan favorite as people take their improbable run to heart and celebrate the tiny evangelical university in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And yet, this is her but. She's creative enough not to use a but. She uses an and yet, which means she's a terrible writer because she used 2 words where she could have used one, and she didn't use the one because she thought it was predictable, which means she's a predictable left-wing hack. as the spotlight grows on Oral Roberts and it reaps the goodwill, publicity, and revenue of a national title run, the university's deeply bigoted anti-LGBTQ plus policies can't and shouldn't be ignored. Founded by televangelist Oral Roberts in 1963, the Christian school upholds the values and beliefs of its fundamentalist namesake, making it not just a relic of the past, but wholly incompatible with the NCAA's own stated values of equality and inclusion. While the school has been soundly mocked on social media for its archaic standards of behavior and code of conduct that bans profanity, social dancing, and shorts in classrooms, it is the school's discriminatory and hateful anti-LGBTQIATTPPABCDEFG policy that fans should protest as the Golden Eagles advance in the tournament. Twice in the student handbook, Oral Roberts specifically prohibits homosexuality. In the student conduct section under the heading of personal behavior, the school expressly condemns homosexuality, mentioning it in the same breath as occult practices. Also, as part of the honor code, the university requires students to abide by a pledge saying they will not engage in homosexual activity and they will not be united in marriage other than the marriage between one man and one woman. Well, this chick doesn't have anything to worry about, does she, when it comes to marriage? As a private university and under the banner of fundamentalist Christian beliefs, the school is free to impose whatever standards of behavior they see fit, even if those standards are wildly out of line with modern society and the basic values of human decency. Now, as Oral Roberts gains national attention, the focus shouldn't just be on their very good men's basketball team, but on their prejudiced teachings and moral regressiveness. That Oral Roberts wants to keep its students tied to toxic notions of fundamentalism that fetishize chastity, abstinence, and absurd hymnlines is a larger cultural issue that can be debated. What is not up for debate, however, is that their anti-LGBTQIATTPABCDEFG stance, which is nothing short of discrimination and should expressly be condemned by the NCAA. Whatever happened to freedom of religion? You and I both know darn well that this girl would not be, if a fundamentalist Muslim school advanced into the NCAA, she'd be writing how openly tolerant we should be, allowing the Muslim group. No. The bigot who decided that it was white supremacy that an Islamic immigrant from Syria gunned people down in a grocery store in Colorado is also bigoted against Christians. Her intolerance is what is on display here, not Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts is showing that their kids, despite being Christians who don't dance, can still dance on a basketball court. It's her intolerance. And this is where we are as a country. The most intolerant people in American society are the people who claim tolerance and acceptance. We are tolerant of everything except intolerance, which means you're pretty damn intolerant yourself. If you can't see people with 2,000 years of Christian orthodoxy embraced it, whether I agree with them or not, I'm fine with shorts in classes. I may or may not have pants on right now. I'm behind a radio microphone. You can't tell. And she's upset that they're intolerant, that they disagree, that they're willing to go out there on the basketball court and play against other teams who may be gay or straight, black and white, male and trans, I don't know. And they're having a good time playing, and she's miserable because they're advancing. She's miserable and upset that she has to watch this, and people are cheering for them. How can you cheer for the hateful bigots? This is USA Today, by the way, giving this girl a venue. Now, let me explain to you what's actually going on and why you won't see this link in show notes or anything like that. What USA Today has done is what a lot of the media has done. They've hired a bunch of outrage machines, people who aren't very thoughtful or deep or tolerant, who can write crazy things like this so the rest of us can talk about them and laugh about them. And USA Today hopes that in the process, our clicks will give them advertising revenue. I made sure to block all of my advertising revenue, all the advertising options, so the advertising won't come up, so they won't make any money off of me looking at the story. But that's why they have this girl. She's a money-making machine of outrage for USA Today. She's not thoughtful and she's not deep. She is hyper-predictable predictable to the point that she knew that she should be putting a but in, and she put in an and yet, so that she didn't have to use the but she winds up being the butt of the joke here because she's making USA Today money off of predictable outrage. You knew it. You knew, and I knew darn well, that if a Christian school that upholds Christian biblical sexual ethic were to make it into the NCAA tournament, some left-wing outrage machine would say exactly what she said. It is hyper-predictable. In fact, you review her timeline on Twitter, and she's probably one of the most predictable outrage machines there is on Twitter. Very comfortable in her smug intolerance of everyone who disagrees with her. This is what the left does. You can predict, we for years on the right have been making predictions about where the left would head. Oh, no, we'll never do that. Marry our sheep, we would never do that. We just want artisan wool for knitting. And next thing you know, if you don't celebrate their marriage, well, then you're the bigot. I mean, this is the way it goes. The left is hyper predictable these days, and it is hyper predictable that they'll be outraged about any feel-good story that involves an actual Christian. The other thing here to note is, one, the media is so willing to allow them to express their bigotry, but also that we get to mock someone on the left still. There's this growing fear on the right. And, a lot of people can't stand up and speak these days. A lot of people cannot be bold, but I get to be. I'm still here. And I get to poke fun at idiots with these predictable views who, and again, I mean, one of the hilarious things here is even writing out the anti-LGBTQ+. Can't say alphabet gang. Can't just say LGBTQ. It's got to be all of it. She wants to show her inclusion by placing an entire class of people with the plus symbol, get all the letters out there, and then hate on the Christians who are succeeding. Scripture says the things of the world hate the things of God. We should be praying for this young lady that maybe she one day embraces the things of God. Otherwise, she's going to a very bad place. And she'll go willingly, denying it the whole time. While the kids at Oral Roberts, if they keep their faith, will shine. And right now they're shining on the basketball court. And it is a statement of her state of soul that she can't look at them and be happy. It's a statement of her soul that she's got to be miserable about them. And so the corollary here is for you as we do now head into politics and discussions and gun control and all of that, that you should still be happy. You should still be happy. You should not be like the things of the world that live in a perpetual state of misery that someone somewhere, a person of faith, might be having a good time. You should have that good time. You don't have to gloat about it. Just win. Be on the basketball courts of life, succeeding, and it makes them miserable. I'm learning that there's this trend out there for people of faith who pray against other people. You shouldn't pray against someone. Pray for them. But you know what also? Delight in your own success, and they'll be even more miserable as you're successful. And to some degree, you can smile knowing you've made them miserable because they're miserable people. But also, you can smile because God's got this, and they don't even understand it.
Want to be on the show? Call Eric now at 8
Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, should you like to be a part of the program, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. You know, speaking of Oral Roberts, my dad, I hope he's listening. I want to do justice to the story. My dad has the greatest Oral Roberts story ever. My father is Swedish. Well, he's born and raised in Miami, Florida, Coral Gables, Florida, but his parents were Swedish. And my dad, when he was young, spoke Swedish at home, English at school, and had a speech impediment. And his younger brother, my Uncle Leif Erickson, had lost an eye in an accident. And so my grandmother Erickson took them to Oral Roberts to be healed at a revival in Coral Gables or in Miami, as my dad tells the story. And they get up on stage, of course, and my dad has a speech impediment and gets up there, and Roberts does his thing and asks my dad, say my name, and my dad says Oral Roberts, and smack on the forehead, healed. And my Uncle Leif gets up on stage, remember, he can see out of one eye. Roberts raises our room and says, Leif, what color's my tie? Red. Bam! Healed! Yes, that was the Oral Roberts ministry. I mean, deeply committed Christian, by the way. Also, I do believe was he from Georgia? No. He wasn't. He was from Oklahoma. But had ministered in Georgia for a while. But yeah, healed. I love that story so much. And you know, every time he'd go back to Florida, my grandmother would take him back to be healed again. All right, we got to move on. I do want to get into the guns and shooting, of course. The President of the United States, he wants gun control now. And of course, those racist bigots who don't want to get rid of the filibuster, they're standing in the way. Here's Joe Biden last night.
I don't need to wait another minute, let alone an hour, to take common sense steps that will save the lives in the future, and to urge my colleagues in the House and Senate to act. We can ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country once again. I got that done when I was a senator. It passed. It was law for the longest time. And it brought down these mass killings. We should do it again.
Now, notice what they're doing here is they're more and more trying to build a moral case against the filibuster. Ben Sasse took to the floor of the United States Senate last night. They're building the case that the filibuster, in fact, is racist. Ben Sasse, the senator from Nebraska, is having none of it and went to the floor of the Senate last night.
Goals, and therefore it needs to be tossed out. But when you were using the filibuster to halt Senator Scott's police reform bill, the filibuster was an essential American institution that forced compromise. But now that it can be occasionally used to resist a 51-50 straight majoritarian exercise of power, it's supposedly exclusively a relic of slavery and a tool of Jim Crow. It's nonsense, and the people saying it know that it's nonsense. They used the same rule last year, and you weren't racist when you used it last year. This is BS that's been focus grouped, and particular bills are being used as the excuse to grab power that won't just be for this bill, it'll be forever. It'll be the end of the Senate. Was the filibuster really a tool of Jim Crow when it was used against Tim Scott last year? I don't think so. And I don't think any of you think so. If somebody wants to come to the floor and repent of their racism for having used the filibuster last year, please do. But it isn't what was happening, so stop with the nonsense rhetoric that's just for an MSNBC soundbite tonight.
Calls out MSNBC as well. Good for him. And you know, it's true. He was immediately attacked, by the way, by Norm Ornstein. Norm Ornstein is the in-house leftist at the American Enterprise Institute who got radicalized during the Obama years and started blaming the Republicans for everything. And Ornstein goes after Ben Sasse and says, It blasts him for using the filibuster against Barack Obama to stymie Barack Obama's agenda because Barack Obama was black. Ben Sasse was elected in 2015 and has never been in the Senate minority. He's never actually used the filibuster until the last 2 months. For Ornstein to say that this is supposed expert now, who's been so broken by the Trump era and the Republicans, to blast Ben Sasse as a racist for using the filibuster against Barack Obama when, in fact, the Republicans never actually used the filibuster against Barack Obama. But who lets facts stand in the way when you can scream racism about everything? Now, speaking of screaming racism and the like, the left has come after State Senator John Albers in Georgia. I asked if he wanted to be on the program. He's going to join me in the next half hour to talk about what's happening in the Georgia state legislature and what has happened to him as the left-wing mob has come after him. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Georgia is on the front lines of the fight against the wokes when it comes to election reform. There are some measures in Georgia that have made national attention that really have no chance of being implemented into law. In fact, the compromise plan it looks like the Republicans are going to push actually continues weekend voting in the run-up to the election, and will continue to have some level of drop boxes. All of the hype that Stacey Abrams has fundraised off nationally isn't so. One of the smart ideas to ensure ballot integrity is to watermark absentee ballots to make sure that they're not copied, that they're actually legit ballots. One of the lawmakers who has been involved in some of the most reasonable compromises to ensure election integrity is State Senator John Albers from Roswell, Georgia, and he's come under fire from the Lincoln Project and the left over his reforms, and he joins me by phone. How are you, sir?
Good to hear from you, Eric. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. So one of your reforms, as I understand it, would just be to ensure that absentee ballots are watermarked so they can't be copied, which has been one of the allegations nationwide. Photocopied absentee ballots have been alleged, and it just seems like a great way to dispel any concern over that, and yet you're being attacked as a suppressor of the vote.
Yeah, Eric, it made no sense. I was proud to sponsor Senate Bill 62, which was passed bipartisan out of the Senate. Really no controversy at all. In fact, if anything, I took a lot of heat for not voting on a bill that would eliminate no excuse absentee balloting, because I believe that was not the right thing to do. So I think that not only did I get the wrong guy, but I literally have lost my job over this.
Well, and I wanted to talk to you about that. So the Lincoln Project comes after you. Your vote plan is exceedingly reasonable, and it's bipartisan, and yet they claim you're a vote suppressor to the extent that the law firm that you work for, which is a large national firm, has decided to part ways with you.
Well, and to be fair to them, Eric, they were a victim in this too. A group, as you know, the Lincoln Project, which is discredited, and I cited in my press release all of the major media outlets calling out their transgressions, within a span of 24 hours, made these false claims, copied my employer and all of their major clients. And within 24 hours, I lost a job that I not only loved, I worked with a great team of people. I recruited friends away to work for me and considered candidly to be one of the best at doing my job that there is. In 24 hours, that false narrative happened to me, and it could happen to anyone.
Yeah, it really can. The activism of the left right now in the country towards those of us on the right and harnessing the power of the Fortune 500 to essentially be enforcers for them seems to be getting out of control. It's got a lot of people worried and a lot of people concerned about what can they do. And I mean, what's been the reaction within the Senate?
Well, honestly, it's been very heartwarming and humbling to have so many people to support me. I've gotten tens of thousands of messages across the entire nation, but the Senate has been steadfast. My colleagues stood behind me, and candidly, I even had several Democrat colleagues come up to me and tell me that this was wrong and they were sorry, and they know in an instant these people would turn on them too. So it's time that we stood up to economic terrorism. That's what this is. And we brought balance back to this equation because, again, I am the one person in the middle of all this, but this could happen to you, to our children, to our friends, to our family, the people we worship with, anybody.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I guess, do you have, when you say we've got to stand up, we've got to right the balance here, what exactly do we do? I mean, to some degree, I almost think the Republicans need to now make sure they pass all of the election reform measures is just kind of a show that a force that you're not going to bully us.
Well, and look, we've got, I believe, what's going to be a great end product. And the legislative process takes time to work through all the different points of view and the potential consequences that will ensure transparency and security. I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't want to have a transparent and secure election. And I believe the final product will be something that everybody will nod their head in agreement. But it goes further. I think that, we have got corporate American businesses now that are afraid of these radical organizations and groups, and they have them come sign pledges and all these things of that nature that they're going to only support them. I think maybe it's time to have the balance of that, where everyone says that we're going to respect all people and opinions, and that goes both ways.
Yeah, this is one of the things that frustrates me, Senator. Is you, for example, were measured and reasonable. You didn't support the massive sweeping reforms. You authored a bipartisan piece of legislation, and yet still the left wing mob was summoned, and you're out of a job as a result of it. And I just don't think this ends well for any of us. And there are going to be more and more people seething with resentment, and I'm afraid there are going to be people who lash out in inappropriate ways over this. There doesn't seem to be a way at this point to diffuse the situation when the left knows they can summon a mob and have the Fortune 500 serve as enforcers.
Well, you're right, and enough has to be enough, and I think that all of the rational people in this world, take all the crazies out on both sides, but the rational people of the world have to say enough is enough. And you know what? I think it's very, very concerning that we start this whole process of boycotting. First off, businesses need to do what they do best, which is just do their business. I don't want a political agenda from somewhere where I eat my food, buy my clothes, or buy something, an appliance. They need to stay out of that completely, because once they wade into those waters, they themselves are going to be in the middle of that, and they shouldn't. So it's just if I don't want to start out everybody's going to boycott everybody, because that's not healthy for our country.
Yeah, I agree. And it does just seem like we should settle the stuff at the ballot box and not come after each other's employers, and particularly with overstated and false claims, which is what's happening more and more. So, I mean, what's next for you job-wise, having left the law firm?
Well, good question, Eric. I have been humbled to receive a lot of gracious folks to send me their resume. And look, I will be okay, and I will go out and do what I do and do it for, I'm sure, a great company. But in the meantime, I'm taking a stand. We are taking action against the Lincoln Project, and we will go after everyone. I think God gave me this mantle for a reason, because if it can happen to me, all based on a lie from a discredited group, it can happen to anybody. And I plan to make it my life's mission to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone again. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's just wrong. Good for you. Now, let me ask you, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this before you get off here. The state of election reform in general in the state legislature, how do you see things shaping up moving forward? I believe, that we're going to have a good compromise bill from all parties that everybody will feel comfortable with supporting, that will address all the security and transparency issues, by the way, that over the years both sides have brought up, and it will pass, and we can have confidence in our elections, whether you think it would have changed the outcome or not. But in this case, I think we just need to focus on doing the right thing. And the truth matters and should always prevail. It does, and it should. And one other issue for you before we get off here. I know this is an issue that you and I have talked about in the past. The law and order issues, police reform in the state. Is there any movement in the state legislature on those issues, particularly just in light of even into Roswell and in the Fulton County area, there seems to be this general uptick in crime in the metro area that has come with the lack of trust now in the Atlanta political establishment from the police force. It seems to be spreading even into Roswell. I know some of the homeowners and business owners there are concerned about crime creeping north from Buckhead. Well, certainly. And look, I'm an avid supporter of public safety, always have been and always will be. We've got several pieces of legislation that are hopefully going to get over the goal line in the next week. That involve obviously protecting law and order, making sure our law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMTs, everyone are protected and respected, and we make sure that all people are held accountable. What's going on in the city of Atlanta right now is the nucleus of all this. And it is a problem when the murder rate is higher in the city of Atlanta than Chicago. We have a major problem, and it's time to address these head on. Sweeping them under the rug is not the right answer. We need leadership, and we need folks to be held accountable.
Yes, we do. Senator, listen, all the best to you. I'm sorry this has happened to you. Your measure was quite reasonable, and I was actually a big fan of the thoughtful approach you took on watermarking the absentee ballot. So best of luck to you. I'm sure you'll land on your feet, and anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Eric, thank you so much for spreading the truthful words over the airwaves, and let me know if I can do anything to help you.
Thank you. State Senator John Albers. He's from the Roswell area. He's one of the more thoughtful members of the state Senate when it comes to these reforms. Some of the conservatives say he's too moderate. The moderates say he's too conservative. He's there in an interesting position. What is incredible to me is what actually happened. John Albers, state senator, Republican, authors a bipartisan measure in the Georgia State Senate. When I say bipartisan, his measure, Senate Bill 62 in the state legislature in Georgia, was met with Democratic applause. Literal, actual applause. They supported his legislation, and they signed up to vote for it. The Democrats did. It required a watermark on absentee ballots to ensure that they're not copied. It required ballot integrity, and the Democrats supported it. It got bipartisan votes. State Senator Albers also was one of 4 Republicans to vote against the more comprehensive election reforms authored by the Republicans in the state Senate. He actually opposed what the national media considered to be the Republicans going too far. And what was his reward? The Lincoln Project, a group that protects kid touchers, rallied a left-wing mob and got John Albers fired from his law firm. They targeted Fortune 500 companies and the law firm management, and he was fired from his law firm. He lost his job. And his sin was to actually draft a reasonable bipartisan measure. He did not support what the media considered the extreme measure. He supported the bipartisan measure. He authored the bipartisan measure and was still punished for doing so. He got Democratic votes and was punished for doing it. If you have someone like John Albers who authors a bipartisan measure, brings both sides together, and gets something reasonable passed that the Democrats and Republicans both support, and he's fired for doing so because a left-wing mob led by the Lincoln Project doesn't like it, all you're going to do is encourage people like me to go along with the more extreme measures, which I now think the Republicans should as payback. Go for broke now. Go for the extreme measures. You've got to stand up to the bully. And the way to stand up to the bully is to do exactly what they don't want you to do. That's what must happen now in the Georgia legislature. The Republicans must pass the massive comprehensive voting reform measure as a way to show woke mobs and the Lincoln Project bullies that they can't stop them. They've got to do this. If you're going to go after the reasonable guy who gets bipartisan support, it's time to stop being reasonable. And it's time to show them what will happen. They will further radicalize people, and they're going to get what they deserve out of this. It's remarkable to me that a group that protected a man who was sexually harassing teenagers is able to have that credibility. But in a world that is increasingly Sodom and Gomorrah, what do you expect?
There's not my truth or your truth. There is
speaking of media coverage on all this stuff, a buddy of mine just sent me this link about the shooter in Boulder, Colorado. We now know that the shooter in Boulder, Colorado was an immigrant from Syria. His shooting came just after Biden bombed Syria. We're not supposed to point that out. You know what we're supposed to point out? Well, this is from the Religion News Service. You know who's to blame for the shooting in Colorado? The Islamophobes. That's right. Here's the headline. Colorado shooting suspect had worried about being targeted for his Muslim faith, acquaintances say. Ahmad Al-Alawi Alissa, the 21-year-old man suspected of shooting inside a crowded Colorado supermarket and killing 10 people, has been described as a very antisocial man who appeared paranoid about perceived slights against him, according to news reports. The Boulder Police Department on Tuesday released the names of the victims. As of Tuesday afternoon, investigators had not established a motive, but authorities believed Alissa, who was born in Syria, was the only shooter. As further details of the suspect, who is from the Denver suburb of Arvada, began to emerge, many expressed concerns and fears over ramped up Islamophobia. Phrases and words like he's Muslim, Islamic, and Middle Eastern were trending Tuesday on Twitter. With Ramadan just a few weeks away, some also worried about potential hate crimes as Muslims are more likely to gather in congregational settings. Interviews with Alissa's siblings and former classmates and previous statements Alissa appears to have made on Facebook paint a man who had violent confrontations with his wrestling teammates and who worried about being targeted due to his Muslim faith. His family also said he suffered from mental health issues. He would talk about him being a Muslim and how if anyone tried anything, he would file a hate crime or say they were making it up. Dayton Marvel, described as a former classmate, told the Denver Post, "It was a crazy idea. I just know he was a pretty cool kid until something made him mad. And then whatever made him mad, he went over the edge way too far." That's right, my friends. It's Islamophobia. Yes, see, the day after the 2019 Christchurch mosque shootings in New Zealand, Alissa shared a Facebook post from another user that read, "The Muslims at the Christchurch mosque were not the victims of a single shooter. They were the victims of the entire Islamophobia industry that vilified them," according to the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast interviewed the suspect's brother, Ali Aliwi Alissa, who said it was not at all a political statement, it's mental illness. The guy used to get bullied a lot in high school. He was like an outgoing kid, but after he went to high school and got bullied a lot, he started becoming antisocial. In high school, his brother said he would describe being chased. Someone is behind him. Someone is looking for him, according to the Daily Beast. So maybe it's mental health, but also Islamophobia. Yeah, it is so predictable. I mean, you can't root for Oral Roberts as the Cinderella team because they're Christian. And this guy shot up the grocery store because of rampant Islamophobia. Now we've got to be worried about Islamophobia. We've got to be worried about the anti-Asian violence that comes from the non-anti-Asian violence in Atlanta that was anti-Asian violence because people feels it so. The world has gone mad. You know, I do every year a show on Good Friday. And I tend to take a higher view of things on Good Friday, and instead of getting into the raw politics, look at things from a slightly more theological perspective, and it can't come soon enough. The amount of stuff I'm stockpiling for that show, but clearly there is something spiritual going on. There's evil run amok across the country, and it is collaborative with secularists who deny the existence of real theological evil, who amplify the insanity of our times. And you're not allowed to identify truth. If you put your finger on it, you're a bigot. And what we're really seeing is the things of the world hate the things of God. And anyone who is of God is now to blame. The church of the shooter in Atlanta is to blame. They clearly made him do it. Now they're to blame for distancing themselves from him. They clearly don't believe what they preached. What happened to love your neighbor? I mean, the church in Atlanta is in a no-win situation for the shooter in Atlanta. In Colorado, it's the Islamophobes. It's those Christian Islamophobes who pushed this guy to shoot. You know, the officer who ran in and lost his life was a Christian. He wanted to get into law enforcement to help others. It was a reflection of his faith to love your neighbor by being a police officer to help his neighborhood. We're not getting that coverage. I only know this because a friend of mine sent me something online that was written online about the guy, but we're not supposed to even talk about that. We can talk about bad Christians at Oral Roberts and bad Christian who left a church and shut up Asian-themed massage parlors. And we can talk about the bad Christian Islamophobes who caused a Muslim shooter to shoot up a grocery store. But let's not talk about the faith of the man who, because of that faith, decided to go into law enforcement to love his community and lost his life in the process of rushing in where angels fear to tread. Nope, we can't talk about any of that stuff. It's so predictable. When we come back, Governor Brian Kemp. I actually talked to him yesterday, recorded the phone call with him right before his expansion of the COVID pool. If you're over 16 now, 16 and up, you can get your COVID vaccine in Georgia. We have enough supplies now. He noted to me that we were 49th out of 50 in allocations from the federal government, but that's going back up now, and the numbers are improving. Did you know? In fact, let me do this real quick while I got 30 seconds or so here. In Georgia now,
30.
Our rate of infection is lower than at any time since May. All of the surges, we're now below all of the surges. We're trending continually in the right direction in Georgia, and that's a good thing, particularly as vaccines ramp up in the state. All right, when we come back, Governor Brian Kemp, I will play you my interview with him from yesterday. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, if you would like to be a part of this program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Glad to have you with me today. And we got so much stuff we need to do and cover. And one of the things that I want to do and cover is the governor of the state of Georgia, who joined me yesterday. Now, I got to set this up for you, because one of the reasons the governor called and talked to me yesterday is, as I mentioned to you now, I'm doing noon to 3 on WSB in Atlanta. It's the most listened to talk radio station in the nation. They moved me there, unfortunately, because of the death of Rush Limbaugh. And so the governor was calling in to congratulate me on that, but I wanted to talk to him about what's happening in the legislature with election reform and what's going on with COVID in the country, and I thought it would be relevant for me to bring it to you. And by the way, if you've been trying to call, I had to fix the phone lines, which just happened, so now you can also call in here, 877-973-7425. But before I take anybody's phone calls, the governor of the state of Georgia. Joining me by phone is the governor.
And we'll look forward to talking a little bit more about that this afternoon.
Well, aren't you diplomatic? let me ask you.
I've learned from listening to you ask people if they're going to run for president, Eric, and I've heard all those answers of them beating around the bushes. So I figured I'd use some of that.
Well, look, I appreciate that. Now, let me ask you on another serious note, away from the vaccine, this tax cut you've signed. We in the state, our economic numbers, I don't think get enough attention out there about how good they are. And it just seems like everything between what the legislature is doing and yourself, there is this real commitment to try to get our economy rolling as fast as we can.
No, I completely agree with you. It's kind of interesting. Several weeks ago, the Atlanta paper ran an article about how tough the economy had been on small business people and certain folks. And, but that's exactly what I told people we were doing when we methodically reopened our economy, because we had to do two things: protect lives, but also livelihoods. Because as a small business owner for over 30 years, I knew the state that people were in. I knew they were at the end of the rope and just were almost devastated, on the verge of losing everything they've ever worked for. And I just felt like we had to do that. And it's interesting that I got exonerated, basically, or scolded, probably a better word to use, when I did that. And now they're saying how bad it was, when in fact we're doing better than most. And our budget is held up remarkably well. I said at the remarks when we signed the tax cut, and also the adoption tax, the tripling of the adoption tax credit for foster kids, that nobody would have thought we would have been doing this last year in the middle of a global pandemic. But that's what we're doing, because we're fiscally conservative and we've taken a measured approach, and our numbers aren't any different from a lot of other states, and in many ways they're much better. And people have lived to fight another day in Georgia, and our economy is doing very well. It's going to continue to get better. I'm confident of that.
Well, while you're talking, I pulled up the Department of Public Health website and just looked, and on the 7-day moving average, you now have to go all the way back to the beginning of June to find comparable COVID numbers, which is remarkable. Right there after Memorial Day, just as people were expecting a little bit of a rise, we've now, no point between June and now has seen numbers as low as what we've got, which is really remarkable. And we've got the vaccine rate, but that seems to be, I guess, one of the chief complaints now in the media and elsewhere is the state vaccine rate, and wanted to get your take on what's going on with that.
Well, they continue to focus on one narrative of that and not the narrative that Dr. Toomey and I focused on. It was our goal when we first started vaccinating with the very limited supply we have. And, now it's coming out that we're 49th out of 50 states in the amount of vaccine that has been shipped to us. So we've been treated, worse than other states, almost every other state on the amount of vaccine that we got. And because of that limited amount of doses, we focused on the people that were most vulnerable to COVID, and that was our seniors, obviously those on the front lines, our nurses, the doctors, and other public health medical professionals, first responders. And I believe that was the right approach. I mean, that category 65 and older, 77% of COVID deaths has come from that group of the population that we've expanded to now, 92% of the deaths. And what we did is actually working, because our hospitalizations have dropped. We're at, less than 11, I think, a little over 1,100 COVID patients in our hospitals. That's 6.8% of the COVID, or the patients in hospitals statewide are COVID. That's down from over 30% when this all started here a couple of months ago. And it's not unusual for them to focus on the one bad data point, but I think it's important for citizens to know that we focused on really the data and the science and doing what is right to protect people that are most vulnerable to COVID. And now that we're seeing the supplies increase on vaccine, we continue to open things up where the broader public can get the vaccine. And that's getting baked in now, as you said, with our case counts coming down. Our percent positive, I think the last 2 days in a row has been below 5%. So very limited spread out there.
Well, the numbers, I mean, they really are remarkably good. Hospitalizations down. We're listed now in the New York Times as one of the states where cases have been high but are actually going down significantly. Deaths are down. We're headed in the right direction. Economically, the numbers are good. Chris Camp wanted to know if Kirby Smart is going to be with you to rally the faithful with the press conference this afternoon.
No, I don't think Kirby's. I think he's at the Lady Dogs NCAA basketball tournament. They got a big victory last night. I think the Georgia Tech women won as well. So the female basketball players are faring a little better than their male counterparts in the tournament. But I think Kirby's doing that. But I know he's planning on getting vaccinated. I think that will help with the Bulldog Nation, and I'm looking forward to getting vaccinated this week as well. I think that's really one of the things that we got to continue to work on, Eric. There's certain segments of the population that we are definitely seeing vaccine hesitancy in. And when you look around the country, I think in the South, we're having more of that than a lot of other parts of the country. My goal is to continue to express my, really thanks to President Trump and Operation Warp Speed for the medical miracle that we have in this vaccine, and continue to do all we can with the current administration to get it out, get it to places that make it available to everyone, whether it's minority-based groups, into churches, into neighborhoods. And we're getting to the point where we can do that, especially with the one-dose vaccine that is going to be more readily available in the weeks ahead.
Now, let me just clarify something with you. Did you just say you're just now about to get vaccinated?
That's correct.
So the governor of the state of Georgia is I thought you big shots got like high priority.
Well, I'm until we dropped the age limit to 55, I didn't qualify, and Marty got her vaccine last Friday because she is like you and your spouse, medically fragile, and she did that in Atlanta to try to help show people that we're very confident in the vaccine, but. Looks like I'm going to be getting mine this week. I've been trying to wait until I could get down to a part of the state where we're seeing hesitancy and the same, age group type person that I am, and a lot of that rural community to try to help maybe give them some confidence. And I hopefully if Coach Smart and others are doing that. I was just talking to Champ Bailey. He's done some public service announcement about, his community and what he represents as just an incredible African-American athlete, great Georgia Bulldog, NFL Hall of Fame member that is important for people to get vaccinated. We just got to continue to do more of that to really make sure that we're convincing people that this is safe and it's the right thing to do. This is this disease, Eric, or this virus, it doesn't hit some very hard, but when it does hit you hard, it can be fatal, and it's not worth it. I mean, we got a medical miracle of science, and people should take advantage of it.
Amen to that. Well, Governor, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you before we got out of here. The legislature's winding down their arguments and, I guess, conference committee on election reform. Do you have anything that you want them to consider, or things that you want them to take off the table when it comes to election integrity in the state?
Well, I just want to thank the House and the Senate. I mean, they've really put some thoughtful effort into this to making sure that we have secure, accessible, fair elections in Georgia, and that it's easy to vote and hard to cheat. From everything that we're seeing that's moving right now, the changes that have been made look really good to us. It's doing those two things, and we'll see where things go the next few days. But I'm pleased to see the movement that we have. I'm kind of reserving judgment to make sure there's not any last-minute changes that we can't live with. But certainly the photo ID requirement on absentee ballot by mail is common sense to me, to make sure we still have that process and availability for people, but make sure it's secure. And this is also going to speed the process up at the local level, that I believe will get the votes counted faster, reporting will be done faster, and we'll just bring total confidence to our elections process, along with a lot of the other things they're doing.
Well, listen, I appreciate you very much taking time out of your day to stop by, particularly with everything you got going on. I know we got a hard break for you here, and just thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Hey, same here. Have a great day, Eric, and good luck with the new show.
Thank you. Governor Brian Kemp. Now, that was my interview with him yesterday afternoon. He went on at 4 o'clock to announce that starting Thursday, anyone 16 and older in the state of Georgia will be able to get their vaccine. There are lots of openings and availabilities south of the NAT line at the mass vaccination sites, but also if you go to the Georgia Department of Public Health website, they'll give you online access to registrations for Publix, Kroger, and Ingles. And I've had a lot of people tell me they're having a lot of success at Ingles because a lot of the Ingles locations aren't in urban areas and tend to have vaccine supply. Go check for yourself and see what's available. But it is, again, worth noting, and let me get on here and check the graph one more time, as I did earlier, and just tell you. And by the way, the website is DPH, Department of Public Health, dph.georgia.gov, where you can get that. So in the 7-day moving average, we're at 1,073 cases. To get anywhere near that, you got to go back to June 21st. Now, that's the date of report. If the one that people pay attention to, though, is the date of onset. And the 7-day moving average in the date of onset is 877 cases in the 7-day moving average. To get anywhere near that, you got to go to June 5th. And the trajectory continues to show a downward shift in cases. And as we get to summer, we may be able to be fully opened back up as a state with all the restrictions and the like in restaurants and small businesses gone away. Now, I want to say something here. As we transition the show more and more towards a national focus or the state focus, as there is state stuff that still comes up that's relevant nationally, I don't intend to abandon that. And I find COVID-19 is one of those. And I say this for everyone listening. We have a massive amount of listeners in Ohio on the live stream. I don't know what I've done to get people in Ohio to listen to this program, but I can tell from our live stream data, we've got over 2,000 listeners a day to this program in the state of Ohio. It consistently shows up in our live stream data. And we've also got over 1,000 daily listeners in the state of Florida on a daily basis with this program, according to the live stream data. And I say this to everyone, regardless of where you are in the state of Georgia, or the state of Florida, or the state of Ohio, or the state of Texas, or anywhere else, you have got to do whatever you can, if you can, to support your small businesses, particularly your restaurants. There's a place near me, Yola Kitchen on College Street in Macon, opened the other day. I went by there, and it was incredible. Oh, my gosh, the smell of that place in and of itself. I'm ready to go eat there again. It was great. Wood roasted chicken. They hang it from strings, Argentinian style. hanging from metal string. It was incredible food. Or Satterfield's, the barbecue restaurant in downtown Macon where I live that's reopened. Anywhere that you live, your local non-chain restaurants are still struggling. And I don't care what state you're in. Anything you can do anywhere in this country, wherever you live, to not cook but eat out, actually you're doing a public service by doing that. And as someone who likes to cook and loves to be inside to cook, I do want to urge you, support your local restaurants. Wherever you are, support your local restaurants. So many of them are struggling right now. Even as the nation starts opening again, we are losing our favorite mom and pop shops, local bars, and restaurants at an alarming rate around this country, and that's not good for any of us.
You're listening to the Erick Erickson Show.
Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-997 Eric 877-973-7425. Sama in Athens, going to go to you next. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Very quickly, I know you don't have time before the news, but we missed you last week, and I'll let you know that Alan Sanders did a great job.
Thank you very much.
It was a great, yes. Yes, sir. But the reason I was calling to express my gratitude and appreciation for our great governor, and also to bring to the attention of the voters of this great state how important a governor's job in our daily life. And I don't want them to be fooled by people who always adapt Martin Luther King's speech style. Like Steve Abraham, Warnock, and Obama, they always have this kind of emotionally fiery speech where then it's just a talk with no action. I mean, why he always bring all this, which actually doesn't hurt more than it helps? Bring all this discrimination and bias and something was taken from this guy and this guy. I mean, this is America. The
Right.
governor, the American work for all Americans.
Well, it's very interesting to me. I'm glad you said this, Sama, that what we're seeing on the Democratic side in Georgia with Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff is that they actually don't have interests in working for anyone other than progressive Democrats. I mean, even things that reasonable Democrats have supported, they have opposed unless the far left Democrats want it. And here's the governor of the state trying to make sure everyone, regardless of Republican or Democrat, gets vaccinated and stays healthy.
Yes, sir. And this is why the people in Ohio listening to, because they are very jealous of Georgia.
Yeah, probably so. If I were in Ohio, I would be jealous of Georgia too. Look, I got to let you go there. Thank you very much. He's absolutely right. The governor it's interesting. They haven't so that the President Trump supporters have aggressively tried to recruit individuals to challenge Brad Raffensperger, Brian Kemp, and now Jeff Duncan. They're floating the name of Burt Jones to run against Jeff Duncan. Burt Jones was originally floated to run against Brian Kemp. Burt Jones is a state senator from Middle Georgia, from Jackson, Georgia, Lamar County area, and they've gone back and forth, I think, on who she should challenge. The rumor today is that possibly Jeff Duncan. Vernon Jones, the Democratic state representative turned Republican from DeKalb County, is being put forward as the guy to challenge Brian Kemp, which I find laughable. There was a rumor started last week by Phil Kent that maybe it'll be David Perdue. Perdue doesn't seem interested in challenging Kemp. They've had a pretty good relationship. I don't exactly know how that's going to shake out. I really don't. I do think that the more divisive primaries we have on the Republican side, the greater the opportunity for Stacey Abrams to get elected. And that's one of the real dangers here. You throw Brian Kemp into a costly primary, he's not going to walk away. He's a fighter, and he's going to fight. And the other side is going to force him to spend exorbitant amounts of money that all but ensure Stacey Abrams' election. If you want to take out Brian Kemp, all right, but keep in mind, in so doing, you improve the odds of Stacey Abrams. And one of the main reasons is because there are a lot of suburban white Republican sympathetic voters who are tired of the Trump era and perceive this as some sort of affront to them, and they'll stay home. And maybe the Trump supporters will stay home. And either way, you get Stacey Abrams if we go down this road. Hello there, it is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Friends, Romans, countrymen, we need to pour one out for little Jim Acosta. Poor Jim. I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but the data keeps coming fast and furious. Little Jim Acosta is going to get promoted at CNN, and CNN in the last couple of months has lost half its audience. Now, part of that is because people have realized that Don Lemon is broken and just says outlandish things. And, you know, I've always had a nice relationship with Don Lemon, but to give you a sense of who he is, the moment I said I'd support the president, he unfollowed me on Twitter. Yet the moment I said I'd vote for Trump in 2019, Don Lemon decided he couldn't follow me anymore. And now he just says, he's the guy on TV who says the outlandish stuff to try to get his ratings up. This is becoming a pattern. It is a pattern and practice with much of the media these days that they say outlandish things hoping to go viral so that you tune in. Or send them clicks. You've got the idiot writer in USA Today who says we shouldn't be celebrating Oral Roberts University because they're Christians. That they are opposed to the alphabet gang, therefore they're bad. And how dare they be Cinderella? They're the stepmother. Actually, they're the rats. And now you got Don Lemon out there. Said, the First Amendment gives me the right to challenge the Second Amendment. Yes, but you're also an idiot. Well, CNN's ratings are down 50%. They're putting poor little Jimmy into the anchor chair now that the ratings have gone away. And Fox News is dominant again. MSNBC, they were celebrating the other day as more people watched MSNBC in January. And now MSNBC is cratered too. It's, this is why, by the way, I went to the Politico this morning, and there are 3 stories above the fold Politico. And, when I say above the fold, they design now where to place stories on the internet, like with an old newspaper, when it's folded over in half and you see the top of the front page. The stories there are the most important stories. Those are the stories you need to know about. And I went to the Politico front page today, above the fold, that is where my monitor will display the stories without having to scroll. 3 of the stories, 3 stories were about Donald Trump. They're addicted to covering Donald Trump. They are addicted to Donald Trump. They can't help themselves but do it because Donald Trump gives them traffic. It's almost like the thing that they should be doing is giving him wall-to-wall coverage, good or bad, because it gets them clicks. And Donald Trump is going to come back with his own social media site now. And look at this. You've got a media coverage. Don't expect a real Donald Trump comeback. This is now still above the fold at Politico. Sad news for loser Jack and all the haters, despite what many people are calling heavy demand. At real Donald Trump will not be returning like a dog to his once favorite part of the big, beautiful internet. Donald Trump may be entertaining a potential reemergence of social media, including the development of his own platform, but there's one path that the former president has indicated to AT is increasingly unlikely to take: getting back on Twitter. Good for him. He doesn't need it. Go do his own thing. And the fact that the media is covering it suggests the president can go do his own thing, but the media is addicted to the clicks they get by covering Trump. If Don Lemon went wall-to-wall covering Trump again, maybe his ratings would go back up. And you can expect at CNN, that's the magic. Remember, Jeff Zucker in 2016 admitted that while he was upset CNN helped get Donald Trump elected, the coverage was good for business. CBS News as well, I think it was Les Moonves at the time, admitted that covering Donald Trump was great for their business. It's what they do. It's what they want to do. They've got to cover Donald Trump Otherwise, their business goes to the gutter. This is why, by the way, so many people in the media are upset about Substack. Substack, if you don't, I've got a Substack newsletter. Your subscription to my Substack newsletter actually helps me with this program. And I've got a Substack newsletter. I've got thousands of subscribers. It helps cover the satellite costs and the employee costs of this here program in lieu of advertising. Lets me talk longer on the radio. Well, the wokes, they're upset with Substack because non-wokes have figured out they can make money by starting newsletters at Substack and getting subscribers, and they're getting paid, and the wokes are not getting paid. The wokes are getting gainfully employed at the moment at the New York Times, which is starting to lose revenue because they aren't doing wall-to-wall Trump coverage. And the wokes are realizing, oh my gosh, the non-wokes, they can get gainful employment and actually make money by going to the Substack newsletter and getting their own subscribers, and we can't let them do that. It's only a matter of time before they start pushing Substack to disclose subscribers so they can harass subscribers to people like me. I mean, they come after my advertisers, they're going to go after my subscribers. It's what they do because they cannot allow anyone to actually make a living unless they're woke. They don't like it. They're opposed to people thinking for themselves. One of the issues on which they hate that any of us think for ourselves is guns. Guns, guns, guns. The Eastman Gun Show. If y'all ever seen the Eastman Gun Show? I don't think it's just a Georgia thing. The Eastman Gun Show, I've seen it in other states, the billboards. Guns, guns, guns. Come now. You know, interestingly enough, in radio, there's this thing. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. In radio, did you know if a plane crashes, the airline companies don't want you playing their ads. There's actually, there's an airline company that will remain nameless. One of their planes, a guy in radio told me the story, who works at a station that I am very familiar with. There was a plane crash by this airline, and it wasn't a bad crash. It ran off the runway, the wheels collapsed, and it ran off the runway, and it was in like some Caribbean island, and they forgot to take out the ad. And the ad was, you can fly one way to this exact same island for $99. And it was a great sale. I mean, it was actually a sale. So, I mean, let's just say Airline X flying to I don't know, the Turks and Caicos. And essentially, you have the Airline X ran off the runway. One person died as the wheels collapsed and the plane landed in the ocean at the end of the runway. We'll be back right after this. Airline X is having a sale to the Turks and Caicos, only $99. They totally forgot to pull the ad with that. So, and you know, it's the same thing with guns, is if there's a mass shooting and you're doing the gun shows, guns, they want you to take the ad off. They don't want to do an ad for guns right after. But this is one of the things that happens in radio. You got to be mindful of it. I'm sure on TV as well. Well, speaking of guns, with the two shootings in the last week, they have insisted, the left and the Democrats, I repeat myself, that we've got to do something about guns. And the cavalcade of communists has come out to grab our guns on television. You know, you're selfish. You're selfish if you want to own assault rifles. Now, first of all, what is an assault rifle? What is an assault rifle? Apparently, people think that AR in AR-15 stands for assault rifle. What is it, Armalite? It doesn't stand for assault. I've got an assault rifle 15. Well, screw you, pal. I've got an assault rifle 55. It's an AR. You're selfish.
That is not freedom, because I feel like a hostage right now. I feel like a hostage to the selfish people that insist on owning these types of weapons. That is not freedom in this country. You are not a patriot because you think you have the right to own these types of weapons. You are not a patriot. You should be taking care of your fellow Americans. This is the 7th mass shooting in the United States in the past week alone. In the past week alone. And so where do we go from here, Whoopi? It is time to start talking right now about gun control, because I know that Representative Lauren Boebert, 2 hours after this shooting, started fundraising, started sending tweets out about the Second Amendment. And
the Democrats do the same damn thing. That's Sonny Huston or whatever on the Insufferable View show. I feel like I'm a hostage to you. Pay no attention to my elaborate salary and my penthouse and my driver and my armed guards. I feel like I'm a hostage to the white people who have assault rifles, who I don't even encounter where I live. I'm a hostage. What a ninny. Good grief. Here's Gretchen Whitmer, who's got everybody locked up already in Michigan.
I know here in Michigan, we've got a lot of people who love to hunt. They are responsible gun owners who recognize background checks are important. Some of these mass destruction weapons don't have a place in the common sale in this country. So
wait, what the hell is a mass destruction weapon? Nobody's selling nukes. I wish you could. I think the right to keep and bear arms allows me to have a nuclear weapon. I should be allowed to have a nuke. But I can't. They don't allow me to. I want a machine gun. You know, when I was in Las Vegas last week, I got to shoot a machine gun that had a suppressor built in. I could take my ear protection off and fire that gun rapidly. It was not a semi-automatic. It was fully automatic, and it was awesome. Is that a weapon of mass destruction? Oh, good grief, the way we revise these things. Well, Chuck Schumer says the Senate's going to be different, and there's going to be gun legislation.
The Senate legislative graveyard is over. 2 summers ago, after another horrific shooting, the Republican leader, then Majority Leader McConnell, promised that there'd be a debate in the Senate floor on gun violence. It never happened. Republicans seem averse to even wanting to talk about the epidemic of gun violence. Like the start of the COVID epidemic, their strategy is to downplay and hope the problem goes away. This Democratic-led Senate will be different. The Senate is not going to hide. We're going to debate and address the epidemics of gun violence in this country.
Notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say they're going to pass gun control. Did you know they can't? I'm not talking about the filibuster either. Because they could get rid of the filibuster, I suppose, but Joe Manchin, he favors a measure of background checks, but not the one the Democrats want to pass.
Senator Manchin just told reporters in the past 30 minutes that he doesn't support the House bills. So that is still getting all Democrats on board is still a challenge. Remember, Senator Manchin had background check legislation with Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, which has been brought up in the Senate twice, once in 2013 after Sandy Hook and once in 2015. And both of those times, that bill does not go nearly as far as the House universal background check bill that Senator Manchin just said he doesn't support. But when those two bills, when that bill was brought up in the Senate twice, both times it got the support of just 4 Republicans. Only 2 of those Republicans remain in the Senate, Senator Susan Collins and Senator Pat Toomey.
They don't know what to do with themselves. They are desperate for gun control, and they can't get it because of Joe Manchin. And you know what? They're raising money to fund a rabid progressive to run against Joe Manchin in West Virginia, who may or may not run again. But if Joe Manchin leaves the Senate, you know it's not going to be a progressive who gets elected. It's going to be a Republican. West Virginia has seen a faster shift to the GOP than any state in the country has seen a faster shift to any political party. I'm not making that up. The data is real. West Virginia has rapidly shifted towards one political party more than any other state, and the political party West Virginia has shifted to is the Republican Party. So you take out Joe Manchin, you actually get a Republican who puts Mitch McConnell back in as the Senate Majority Leader, which ends any talk of getting rid of the filibuster. That's why the Democrats are beside themselves. They are frustrated. Where is this? Hang on. Well, yes, here we go. Joe Biden's New Deal. This is Axios. President Biden recently held an undisclosed East Room session with historians that included discussion of how big is too big and how fast is too fast to jam through once-in-a-lifetime historic change in America. The historians' views, surprise, surprise, were very much in sync with Joe Biden's. It is time to go even bigger and faster than anyone expected. If that means chucking the filibuster and bipartisanship, so be it. Now, wait just a damn minute. You got a 50-50 Senate, and these people think it's go big or go home time? What world are they living in? There is the world as it exists, which includes a 50-50 Senate, and the world that apparently exists up the backside of a unicorn's butt that these people think they live in, where the Senate is controlled by a 65 Senate Democrat conference. This isn't the world they live in. And of course, Michael Beschloss is there. Michael Beschloss, the historian, if you ever follow him on Twitter, which I do so you don't have to, has been broken by the age of Donald Trump. The dude, he and Joe Meacham or whatever, those two dudes have been so broken by the era of Donald Trump. They've let their hair down, and they are full-blown hair on fire progressive mode. And he's like, go big or go home. FDR and LBJ has nothing on you, Joe. Joe can't even get up the stairs of an airplane. You think he's going to be able to move fast on anything? No, he can't. He's not going to. But it's wishful thinking now on the left. We're in the land. Maybe they're all eating the mushrooms that they want to legalize. They're taste testing because these people are having some psychedelic dreams on what they think they can do.
You can follow Erick around social media at
Welcome. It's Erick Erickson here. The phone number, should you wish to be a part of this here program, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Remember, Eric is E-R-I-C-K. You can also go to ewerickson.com or ericericksonshow.com, either one. They go to the same place. You can get my recipes. You can listen to the live stream. If you are out of town, you can do all of that. Friends, Romans, country. I've said that once already. Man, I'm brain fart. I shouldn't do that. My producer will send me angry hate mails doing that. If there is one story I love in modern America more than any other, and probably don't talk about it enough on radio, it is the gentrification stories. What is gentrification? Well, it is woke hipsters who move into poor urban inner city areas in the name of showing solidarity to the inner city youths who live there, and then they start doing home improvements, drive up the costs of property, and all the poor people they wanted to hang out with have to move out. It's becoming a thing. You know, so I'm here in Georgia, and in Atlanta, there are now stories about all the violence regarding gentrification. You got the poor black neighborhoods that are being turned into hipster flannel-clad white neighborhoods, and the poor black people are getting a little pissed off about having to move from their lifelong homes because they can't afford the property taxes anymore. Well. This is from the Texas Monthly. I love this. The fleet of several dozen cars pulled into East Austin's Fiesta Gardens, or Chicano Park as locals call it, on a recent weekend with the booming of powerful stereo systems announcing their arrival. After a few loops around the park, some drivers, most of them black and Latino men in their 20s and 30s, driving customized lowriders, bright candy-colored slabs, and jacked-up trucks with flashy chrome rims, packed into a nearby middle school parking lot. Some unloaded barbecue grills, toddlers, pit bulls, cracked open beers, blasted Texas hip-hop and Tejano music. Others joined a slow-moving carousel. Some variation of the assembly has taken place nearly every Sunday afternoon since the early 90s. But now many residents of The Weaver, a newly built luxury apartment building across the street, have decided it's time for an unceremonious end. The woke white hipsters believe the car culture taking place in the parks is a sign of toxic masculinity, and they want it stopped. I'm not making this up. They moved in. The woke white hipsters moved in, gentrified the neighborhood, drove up the costs, and now the historic gathering of black and Latino 20-somethings to impress each other with their cars is a display of toxic masculinity, and it's got to be shut down. How dare they live their lives? Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. I am delighted to have you with me. I would be delighted to hear from some of you. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Should you delight in calling radio programs, you will have to get past my call screener, though. It is no easy task. Only the best of you get through. Now, we must move to relevant news. The Biden administration. Joe Biden has a plan for America. I have mentioned this story. Joe Biden meeting with historians in a closed-door meeting in the White House East Room. And the historians, all academic progressives, go big or go home, Joe. That's what they want. Joe Biden won't hesitate, just as he passed the $1.9 trillion COVID rescue package with 0 Republican votes and 0 regrets. His team sees little chance he's going to be able to rewire the government in his image if he plays by the rules of bringing in at least 10 Republicans. He's ready to scrap the filibuster, even if it means a nuclear winter in the Senate. Now, get this. Here is the New York Times. Headline: Biden team prepares $3 trillion with a T, $3 trillion in new spending for the economy. A pair of proposals would invest in infrastructure, education, workforce development, and fighting climate change with the aim of making the economy more productive. President Biden's economic advisors are pulling together a sweeping $3 trillion package to boost the economy, reduce carbon emissions, and narrow economic inequality, beginning with a giant infrastructure plan that may be financed in part through tax increases on corporations and the rich. After months of internal debate, Mr. Biden's advisors are expected to present the spending proposal to the president and congressional leaders this week, as well as begin outreach to industry and labor groups. On Monday, Mr. Biden's national climate advisor, Gina McCarthy, discussed his infrastructure plans and their role in combating climate change in a meeting with oil and gas industry executives. Wait a second, Gina McCarthy is I thought John Kerry was he's got so many climate advisors we can't keep up. Did y'all see the picture of John Kerry on the plane? At least he wasn't on his private plane. He was in first class or some such, and he had taken his mask off. The masks are only for the rest of us, not for John F. Kerry. Administration officials caution details remain in flux. Oh, I bet they are. But the enormous scope of the proposal highlights the aggressive approach the Biden administration wants to take as it tries to harness the power of the federal government to make the economy more equitable, address climate change, and improve American manufacturing and high technology industries in an escalating battle with China. The $1.9 trillion economic aid package that Mr. Biden signed into law wait a second, I thought it was a COVID relief package. Now they're saying it's an economic aid package? What? It included money to help vulnerable people and businesses survive the pandemic downturn, but it does little to advance the longer-term economic agenda Mr. Biden campaigned on, including transitioning to renewable energy and improving America's ability to compete in emerging industries like electric vehicles. Administration officials essentially see those goals, building out the nation's infrastructure and shifting to a low-carbon future, as inseparable. The package come under consideration would begin that effort in earnest. Mr. Biden's plan represents a stunning shift in priorities, addressing many of the nation's most pressing challenges, said Seth Hanlon, a senior fellow at the Liberal Center for American Progress think tank, contrasting the plan with the priorities of Mr. Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump. As reported, the plan is very wide-ranging, reflecting the fact that we've underinvested in so many areas. Just how to approach the legislative strategy is still under discussion, given the size of the proposal and the thin majority the Democrats hold in the House and Senate. Mr. Biden's advisors plan to recommend the effort be broken into pieces, with Congress tackling infrastructure, before turning to a second package that would include more people-focused proposals like free community college, universal pre-kindergarten, and a national paid leave program. Some White House officials believe the focus of the first package may be more appealing to Republicans, business leaders, and moderate Senate Democrats, given the long-standing bipartisan push in Washington for infrastructure. Every senator in Washington sees an infrastructure bill and realizes they can get an overpass named for them. That's why they love infrastructure. You want a bridge named after you, support the infrastructure plan. The plan would spend heavily on clean energy development and the development of other high-growth industries of the future like 5G telecommunications. It includes money for rural broadband, advanced training for millions of workers, and 1 million affordable and energy-efficient housing units. Documents suggest it would include nearly $1 trillion in spending on the construction of roads, bridges, rail lines, ports, electric vehicle charging stations, and improvements to the electric grid and other parts of the power sector. Whether it can muster Republican support will depend in large part on how the bill is paid for. Officials have discussed offsetting some or all of the infrastructure spending by raising taxes on corporations, including increasing the 21% corporate income tax rate and a variety of measures to force multinational corporations to pay more tax. That strategy is unlikely to garner Republican votes. What do you do? What do you say? How do you get the GOP out of the way? Well, there's a problem. Say it with me. Filibuster. The Democrats are going to have to deal with filibuster. Here's what's actually going on. There are two things that are happening, and we get to those two things by considering this story from the Fox kids. From Fox. Headline, Democrats are hoping COVID-19 stimulus will help them defy history in the midterms. The party in power historically loses control of at least one chamber of Congress in the midterms. Can a popular stimulus law help Democrats win? After Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, the American Rescue Plan was passed and signed into law. The president and vice president, first lady, and second gentleman have fanned out across the country to promote the package. Battleground states have featured heavily on the schedule. Biden traveled to Pennsylvania, will travel to Ohio. Harris went to Nevada and Florida. The president and vice president went to Georgia, where Biden initially promised to deliver $2,000 stimulus checks and lied about it. Lies. So here's the thing. Essentially, what the Democrats have decided to do is spend money to win. They're going at this in a multifaceted way, and you need to understand what's happening here. The Democratic strategy is all about 2022 because the Republicans will be on defense in the Senate, and they're hoping to gain a few more seats in the Senate to get rid of the filibuster. The way they're doing that is they're using the House of Representatives to flood the United States Senate with a bunch of measures the Democrats think are popular. H.R. 1, the Election Reform Bill, the Equality Act, the Transgender Advancement Bill that punishes Christians, a bunch of other pieces of legislation, the gun control legislation, all of these things that they've pushed to the Senate because the Democrats, in their narrow coastal elite bubble, believe all of these things are actually popular with people, even though they're not. And so then they're going to use moral outrage to try to keep and gain seats in the United States Senate. They're targeting Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, seats like that. They're targeting Pat Toomey, who's retiring in Pennsylvania, and others. They want to sweep. They want to save Raphael Warnock in Georgia. All of these things building up because they know they can't get it all passed this year, but they want to use the politics of moral outrage against the Republicans. And the way they want to neutralize Republicans is they want to spend big, and they want to throw all this money. They want a bipartisan infrastructure deal. Maybe they can get Republican support on, and they can spend money, take credit for economic growth. The problem is inflation, of course. What happens if they cause an economic slowdown by printing all this money and getting the national debt out of whack? What the Democrats, though, don't understand is something very important. And it works to Republican advantages. You hear people say all of the time, why is so-and-so voting for the GOP? They're voting against their economic interest. Republicans sometimes say the same. Why did people vote for Joe Biden? Why did suburban white people vote for Joe Biden? They were voting against their economic interest. You hear this all the time. The reality is this. People vote out of cultural concern these days more than economic concern. Trying to pass the Equality Act which would allow government-sanctioned persecution of Christians. Probably not the best idea. But the Democratic bubble is a bubble that is also reflected within the American media establishment. And the American media is all on board the transgender agenda, even though most Americans are not. So they're pushing them to do this. It reminds me, if you will recall, last year, the Democrats pushed and pushed and pushed, and the media praised and praised and praised Nancy Pelosi for obstructing everything President Trump wanted, including the $2,000 checks. Ironically, if President Trump had gotten elected and Loeffler and Perdue in Georgia had stayed in the Senate, Americans would have gotten $2,000 checks instead of $1,400 checks. But Nancy Pelosi obstructed all these things, and the media kept telling Pelosi, you go girl, you go girl, the fawning praise in the press for Nancy Pelosi. And you know what? She came within 6 seats of losing a House majority when all of the polls that everyone was looking at showed the Democrats were set for a landslide in the House. Why? Because Americans got freaked out seeing Democrats burning down America over the summer. Americans all rushed out and did what? They bought guns. Do you know why you can't buy guns right now? It's because, one, there's been a mass rush on guns, but also there's a lot of new gun owners out there. And the demand for guns from new gun owners who want to learn to use them and go to gun ranges and shoot them has outstripped the supply of bullets and guns in this country. That is why we continue to have a shortage of guns and ammo in this country. It's new gun owners. And do you really think they're going to want to surrender their guns to a Democratic government that can't even be honest about what happened last summer? They're so busy blaming Trump supporters for January 6th, they can't even address the fact that it was Joe Biden supporters who burned down America last summer. And yes, you and I both know darn well those people voted for Joe Biden. The Democrats don't understand the cultural concerns because they are so far left now, far left of the country on these issues. They are so convinced that they are beholden to the Alphabet Gang, and what the Alphabet Gang wants, the Alphabet Gang gets. What the Alphabet Gang wants is punishing Christians and people of faith and bullying anyone who disagrees with them on any issue of transgenderism. Take, for example, Twitter. Twitter, which wants to do conservative outreach to preserve and protect its position. Twitter will turn off your account if you call Ellen Page Ellen Page. Who is Ellen Page? The actress of the movie Juno. She's now decided she is Elliot Page, and you're a hateful bigot if you don't go along with her. And if you point out the bigotry and bullying of the left on these issues against people of faith, you're going to get your account turned off. Most Americans, I'm sorry, but Time Magazine running this profile of Elliot Page is ready for his moment and running this story as if Elliot Page has always been. And if anyone says, wait a second, who is this guy? That was Elliot Page. You're a hateful bigot. You can't say that. We're going to turn off your account on Twitter. Most Americans are like, what the hell is going on? One moment you're this, the next moment you're that. And if I'm thinking, wait a second, what happened here? I'm a bigot. The left has just decided they can ramp this up and move so fast. It's left a lot of Americans, even Americans sympathetic to them, scratching their heads wondering what has happened. People have lost their damn minds. And the problem and the reality is this. People are going to vote on that. People are going to vote on seeing the mob burn down businesses. People are going to vote on seeing Democrats wanting to put boys on girls sports teams. People are going to vote on the woke mob making people go to diversity training in businesses, and if you don't take their side, you're going to get fired. People are going to vote on those issues because the economic issues don't really bother people right now. What bothers them is a cultural elite in this country that is demanding they either get on board with their program or shut up and go away and lose their job. And the media is so complicit at this moment with the Democrats on these massive cultural shifts that have left people reeling and their head spinning. They're encouraging the Democrats to go big or go home. I mean, you've got these historians, and they're getting fawning praise from the media for telling Joe Biden, just do it. Get rid of the filibuster. Do it all, Joe. Do it all. Go big, Joe. Go big or go home. That's going to end badly for the Democrats. And, you know, to some degree, it would kind of be funny if they got rid of the filibuster You get the Republicans in there with a Republican president, and they undo the legacy of all of the Democrats, from Obamacare to Lilly Ledbetter to hate crimes legislation to you name it. That would actually be kind of freaking hysterical. But there'd be a long, terrible road getting there, which no one on the right wants. And a lot of culturally conservative voters who vote Democrat are increasingly moving to the right on these cultural issues as the white woke elite decide that there's no one left to stop them. You know who's going to stop them? The American public's going to stop them. And Democrats may hate it and scream racism and white supremacy about it all, but Americans will go exercise their private right in the ballot box to shut down the effort of the wokes.
You're listening to the Erick Erickson Show, the perfect blend.
Hello there. By the way, if you do want to text the word recipe to 33777, you will get a link back. If you click the link, you can put your address in, email address, and subscribe to the recipe list. You can also call us at 877-973-7425. I must talk about a most important issue. One I have put off, painfully put off, largely because I didn't want angry calls from my producer. I must endeavor now to discuss that most important topic. Friends, I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. I have. I watched all 4.5 hours of it, and it was a glorious spectacle. Now, for those of you who have no earthly idea what I'm talking about, so, you know, you got the Marvel superheroes and the Avengers. Well, DC has the Justice League. It's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. That they add here and there, the Martian Manhunter, Hawk Girl. You know, I used to watch the cartoons when I was a kid of the Justice League, and it was the Wonder Twins as well. And when I was a kid, and they've killed them off, thankfully. So DC decided it needed the DC universe, and the DC universe sucks terrible. It's just bad. And they let Zack Snyder, who's apparently a super nice guy, start it. And Man of Steel, I liked okay. Batman versus Superman, I didn't really like. And then Zack Snyder, sadly, his daughter committed suicide. He's got 8 kids, and his daughter committed suicide, and he was not capable of finishing the Justice League movie. So DC was kind of tired of Zack Snyder anyway. The movies weren't doing great, so they brought in Josh Whedon. Josh Whedon is woke, white, leftist, who claims some credit for Avengers stuff, but really didn't deserve it. His claim to fame really is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Josh Whedon essentially redid the Justice League into camp comedy, and it was one of the worst movies at the box office ever. They tried to blame Zack Snyder, but, I mean, Whedon had re-edited and put in so much in. And Whedon, of course, is one of those people who's been broken by Trump, who had to even add in a scene where a white dude in a MAGA shirt is assaulting a Muslim woman, just to make his political point. The movie didn't go over well. Fans have clamored and clamored and clamored for a Zack Snyder cut. And after 4 years, I mean, people literally rented airplanes and flew banners over the Warner Brothers headquarters demanding the Snyder cut. So they finally gave it to people. They had to throw in $70 million to Snyder to finish it and do the special effects. And the result is something way better than what was at the theater. It's divided into 5 parts. You can watch it as a miniseries or as a movie if you want. I watched it. I spent all 4.5 hours watching that movie. It is way better than what you got in the theater, and it teases some sequels that will never come, including one with Batman having hit out him. What's his name from Superman? Lex Luthor tells a bad guy who Batman really is and sends him off to kill him. Here's the thing. The movie is way better than what was in the theater, and it shows the power of fans to bully a studio to show them something that was actually a fairly good movie. It's not the greatest action hero or superhero movie out there, but it was good. The other thing is, Snyder does something that I wish others would do. If the superheroes really existed, they would kind of be gods on the planet, and the destruction would be way more than what you see in the Marvel movies.
15.
And he's right by that, and he shows the logical consequence of having superheroes on Earth, which I think is actually an interesting concept. I'm just not sure DC will ever pull it off right. Hello there. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Glad to have you here with me. I got to play you a clip. Oh, well, the clip kind of speaks for itself. You know, Ibram Kendi. Ibram Kendi is all the rage among the woke white people these days who are filled with white guilt. Ibram Kendi is the guy on wants to teach you how to be an anti-racist. Essentially, he's one of the grifters making lots of money out of intersectionality and critical theory and claiming everyone's a racist unless they buy his book or whatnot. The whole thing is, I mean, he's over the top in his claims, and essentially he wants racial reconciliation in this country to be painful. Reparations and the like all come forward. Well, he was at a church. Some woke church had him to sit on stage and talk about faith and the like. And you got to hear what he has to say.
Liberation theology. In other words, Jesus was a revolutionary. And the job of the Christian is to revolutionize society. That the job of the Christian is to liberate society from the powers on earth that are oppressing humanity. Everybody understand that? So that's liberation theology in a nutshell. Savior theology is a different type of theology. The job of the Christian is to go out and save these individuals who are behaviorally deficient. In other words, we're to bring them into the church, these individuals who are doing all of these evil, sinful things, and heal them and save them. And then once we've saved them, we've done our jobs. And to me, anti-racists fundamentally reject savior theology. That goes right in line with racist ideas and racist theology, in which they say, you know what, black people, other racial groups, the reason why they're struggling on earth is because of what they're behaviorally doing wrong. And it is my job as the pastor to sort of save these wayward black people or wayward poor people or wayward queer people. That type of theology breeds bigotry. And so to me, the type of theology, of liberation theology, breeds a common humanity against the structures of power that oppress us all.
I'm so glad this church invited Ibram Kendi to speak, because anyone who's a Christian can hear him and recognize that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me read you the words of the Christian God. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. That is Savior theology, not liberation theology. The Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, believes that there is this guy. His name is Jesus. He is fully God and fully man. And he did what the first Adam could not do. He chose willfully to follow God even to his death without sin, conquered death, rose again from the grave, and all who believe in him will have everlasting life in heaven for eternity. And what you are to do is to put your trust in him. He is to be your Lord and Savior. It is a Savior theology. And what's so great with Ibram Kendi speaking out is that there are a lot of Christian churches in America that are dabbling in this woke, intersectional, critical theory, anti-racism idea. And for Ibram Kendi to get on stage and say that actually Orthodox Christianity is incompatible with anti-racism and is in fact racist, I hope will open the eyes to a lot of Christians that you can't go down this road. there are a whole lot of people who want to embrace it. Essentially, one of the terrible things that is happening in society right now on the left and the right is this desire to be liked by the world. We want people around us to like us. And so what we do is when the herd is moving in a direction, we all move with the herd. And we're willing to give up who we are. We're willing to give up our ideas and our principles, or we have none to begin with, in order for everyone else to like us. And part of that is we embrace these wackadoo ideas on the anti-racist agenda. Whatever they say it is, you got to go along with it, even if you think it's kind of nuts. You can't just say, I'm going to raise my children to be colorblind. No, they've got to actually see race and overcompensate to correct from their own race if they're white. You can't just say, I'm going to treat all people equally. No. You can't do equality. You got to do equity now, where you take from some and give to others. You've got to punish yourself to elevate others, or punish other people. You've got to see everyone as a class of people, not as an individual. You got to do all of the things Scripture says not to do. You got to do all the things common sense says not to do. And here comes the guy who's kind of at the vanguard of this anti-racist ally movement, who says you got to reject savior theology. You got to reject the idea of converting people to Christ. And instead you got to liberate people. You got to reject the idea that we're sinners and call people to repent. You can't do that anymore. It's antithetical to Christianity. And I know people, I have friends, some of whom I think are listening right now, who have recommended I got to read this. You got to read Kenty. You got to read him. He knows what he's talking about. He clearly does not. And I hope those people who have been urging me to go down this road heard that clip. Let me play this again, just so pay attention to this.
Liberation theology. In other words, Jesus was a revolutionary. And the job of the Christian is to revolutionize society. That the job of the Christian is to liberate society from the powers on earth that are oppressing humanity. Everybody understand that? So that's liberation theology in a nutshell. Savior theology is a different type of theology. The job of the Christian is to go out and save these individuals who are behaviorally deficient.
Now, I'm going to stop there because notice how one, he talks about class and the other individual, and makes the theology of the individual bad, the theology of the class good, the liberation theology, but he also makes it about us. That it's our job to liberate. Our job to liberate, not our Savior's job. It's about us, not him. It's a very self-centered. Ibram Kendi is advocating a very self-centered worldview. And it's about bringing a heaven to earth. I don't even know that he accepts the idea of an eternity. I have no idea. But he certainly doesn't understand Christianity and believes that it perpetuates racism, when actually it is the Christian God who, one, offers the concept of grace. No other God, including the secular gods that Kendi clearly worships, offer grace, but also, more importantly, offers a pathway to eternity through your individual salvation. Now, this is something you got to understand, and I've said this before. Secular eschatology, the study of secular end times, is very different from Christian eschatology. In Christian eschatology, you and I individually put our trust in the Savior, Jesus Christ, and we have a personal relationship with him. And whether your next door neighbor lives or dies, goes to heaven or hell, if you put your trust in Christ, you have eternal life. With the secular eschatology, if you get woke, you're still not saved as long as the mouth-breathing bigot who lives next to you exists. If the mouth-breathing bigot can stand in the town square and say, I'm sorry, you're wrong, your theology is wrong, you can't have salvation. And the only way to have salvation is to shut him up. This is why almost every single totalitarianism that engaged in the mass extermination of humanity comes from left-wing secular ideology. Nazism, National Socialists, communism, you name it. The Maoists, the communists, all of these things, they reject God. They want to bring heaven on earth because they believe there is no afterlife. As long as you exist and can say otherwise, you deny them the ability to bring heaven on earth. They can't get salvation for everyone as long as there's one person who stands up and says something contrary to them. That's why you have ruthless exterminations by secular leftist ideologies throughout the world, from the communists to the Nazis, the far left Maoists. Their eschatology is screwed up. See, a Christian can stand in the town square with someone who has a contrary view and understand that they get their right to say whatever they want. One, truth wins out in the end, but also, I'm saved, and if I can save just one person, I've helped advance the kingdom. The secularists can't do that, though. Let's take the denomination of secularism called environmentalism. If you are an environmentalist and you believe your path to salvation is being carbon neutral, eating plants, not having kids, riding a bike, holding your breath so you don't release carbon, you name it, recycling your farts so the methane doesn't get out there, whatever. As long as your next door neighbor is driving the pickup truck or the SUV and ordering steaks from Omaha Steaks or wherever, well, I mean, how dare you? I mean, you're depriving the woke of their salvation by merely existing because you're polluting, and they got to do something to stop you. They've either got to use the force of government to force you to change your ways, or you've got to be eliminated from society for them to have salvation. That's why secularism is such a dangerous religion. And yes, secularism is a religion. It has its own liturgies. It has its own theology. It has its own tithing. It has its own orthodoxy. It has its own sacraments. It has its own songs. It has its own hymns. You name it. It is a religion. The only difference between secularism and every other religion is every other religion is willing to acknowledge it's religious. The secularists are not. They live in denial, but they still live in a religion, and the most dangerous religion. I mean, they'll say, well, they actually, secularists won't say about Islamic fundamentalism that it's the most dangerous. They would tend to say the Christians are, even though the Christians aren't hijacking airplanes and flying them into buildings. But it's actually the secularists, whether it's Hitler or Stalin or Mao or Maduro in Venezuela or whoever's in charge of Cuba now, the other Castro brother, or what's his name in North Korea. All of them secular. All of them reject a belief in God, and all of them, to get their heaven on earth, have had to eliminate the people who disagree with them. That's a dangerous game we're playing here, and we're seeing the opening chapters of that dangerous game being played with the woke white elite in this country and their allies, who believe that in order to get to anti-racism or to get to carbon neutrality, or what, anyone who disagrees with them must be silenced. It's a very foundational point of critical theory that dominant discourses shape reality. It's not the world itself that shapes reality. It's the dominant discourse. What you say shapes reality. And so to change reality, we've got to shut people up. Well, some people can't be shut up. So if you can't fire them, chase them off the radio like me, well, guess what you got to do to them? It ends badly every time secularism does. Now, before I get out of here and go to commercial break, I need to do my best to keep you eating meat, good meat, from Omaha Steaks. You know, they age their beef 21 days. That's when the flavor really happens. The magic happens. The tenderness comes out. The beefy flavor comes out. And if you want a great introduction to Omaha Steaks, go get their Butcher's Bestsellers package. They have hand-cut, butcher's-cut fillets. They got pork chops. They get kielbasa sausages. You get hamburgers. You get their caramel apple tartlets. You get a fantastic introductory package to Omaha Steaks. If you go to omahasteaks.com, if you put Georgia in the search bar, the name of my state, Georgia, put it in the search bar, you will see the Butch Bestsellers. If you go order right now, you're going to get an additional free 4 chicken breasts and 4 more burgers for free. Now, I dwell on the burgers for a reason, although my personal preference at Omaha Steaks is their bacon wrap fillets. You can search them out on their website. But their burgers, you know, if you just go get ground chuck at the grocery store and you put it on the grill, it shrinks up. Omaha Steaks has a great burger blend, and it's not going to shrink up on your grill. But I've got one of those Blackstone griddles, and I make smash burgers. and they're so great. They're unbelievably flavorful. But if you throw them on the grill, they're not going to shrink up. You can get chicken, you can get lobster, you can get shrimp. Omaha Steaks has such a great option, such great packages for you. And this one is a great introduction to Omaha Steaks. It's the butcher's bestsellers. What you do is you go to omahasteaks.com, you put Georgia in the search bar, and if you order right now, order it today, you're going to get 4 free chicken breasts and 4 burgers for free. It's Wednesday. You could get this by the weekend and grill up a feast for your family as the world goes back to normal. And you can bring normalcy and a restaurant quality meal to your house at omahasteaks.com. Put Georgia in the search bar and get some deliciousness delivered to your door.
Well connected and well respected.
Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. It is 53 after the hour. I want to remind you guys, now listen, this is for those of you who work with businesses. Very important if you work with a business and you want to grow your business. You oftentimes need access to capital, you need credit, you need more financing, and so many banks right now are telling people no. Well, First Liberty Building and Loan wants to help you get to yes. They are local to me here in Georgia. The Frost family can help anybody. If you're listening to, I don't care if you listen to me in Anchorage, Alaska. If you are in the United States, First Liberty Building and Loan can help your business. But I'm talking 6 figures and higher. So you need $500,000, you need $1 million. Well, you need First Liberty Building and Loan to help. And go to firstlibertyga.com. Just spend 5 minutes with them. Maybe they can't help you, but they want to try to help you. They want to help you get to yes with financing, where so many banks are saying no. And First Liberty Building and Loan, they make their own lending decisions. So go to firstlibertyga.com. I don't care if you're in Honolulu or Anchorage, if you're in Bangor, Maine, or Los Angeles, well, maybe not if you're in California, but anywhere else in the United States, even in California, go to firstlibertyga.com. The UFOs, friends, are flying over military bases. Yeah, there's been an uptick in conversations. Now, I'm going to be Art Bell for a moment. We've talked about this before. John Ratcliffe, the former intelligence director, came out and said he's seen plenty of classified data that these machines, whatever they are, they're flying in maneuvers in ways that we can't, going supersonic speeds at 90-degree turns is something the human body, whether you're Russian or Chinese or American, are incapable of doing. You can't be going 800 miles an hour straight and then immediately 800 miles an hour turning 90 degrees. It doesn't work. You can't do it. It's physically impossible for the human body. And yet these things are doing it. And now Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, says that they're buzzing Air Force bases. TMZ, the TMZ Hollywood celebrity site, stopped Marco Rubio, who's on the Senate Intelligence Committee at Reagan National Airport, noting the government is now required to release a report detailing everything officials know about the UFOs. And he says there's stuff flying over military installations. Nobody knows what it is, and it isn't ours. It's common sense, right, that we should want to identify them. So should we be worried about a potential foe from a galaxy far, far away? Rubio thinks so. I think the worry is there's stuff flying over our facilities. We don't know what they are. You know what I mean? So here's the concern. Maybe there's another logical explanation. The TMZ reporter went so far as to ask Rubio if aliens or China imposed a bigger threat on the U.S., and the senator repeated he doesn't know what the objects are. There's stuff flying over the top of our military installations. They don't know who's flying it. They don't even know who it is, so that's a problem. We need to find out. Maybe it's the Chinese, maybe it's the Russians. But, you know, given what we know about Chinese technology, the odds are it's not them. Like they, with gusto, released their massive aircraft carrier last year. It promptly caught on fire. The Chinese are fantastic at doing things that then don't last very long. The Russians don't seem to have the capabilities. The Iranians don't. What is it? Part of me thinks it's the Air Force screwing with the Navy, the U.S. Air Force and the Navy messing with each other. But American officials seem certain it's not, and there are reports out that some of the stuff is technology that we don't even know what it is. Have we considered that maybe it's not little green men from foreign planets, but extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional demonic forces? Listen, I take scripture seriously that there's a world unseen of angels and demons. And I know we're headed into the end times. I mean, the world has completely lost its mind. We are clearly spiraling towards the apocalypse. Maybe the demons are trying to kick it off with gusto, kick off Armageddon or some such. I just think when we see this stuff, a lot of secularists who believe in the rise of the robot army that's going to enslave us and the little green men who can fly faster than light are completely dismissive of angels and demons. And I believe the angels and the demons are real. And it makes me wonder if that's what we're seeing here. And as we head closer and closer to the final days, the devil's off the chain, and he's being more and more open with what he's doing to try to spark wars and conflicts and rumors of wars and everything else. I just think if we're going to talk seriously about aliens from outer space, we should be talking seriously about angels and demons, because I think there's way more documentation of them existing than aliens existing. But that's just me in my Art Bell moment. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.